Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're back with the original Spider-Verse crossover, and we're going to cover Spider-Woman issues 1 and 2, Amazing Spider-Man issue 12, and Scarlet Spiders issues 2 and 3. So without further ado, let's get into this. So the Spider-Woman issues are written by Dennis Hopeless. I'm not too familiar with his work, and we have fantastic art by Greg Land. And of course, all the women that he illustrates look like porn stars. It's sort of a thing with Greg Land. So we're going to have a couple of panels where we're going to have our heroines in some sketchy poses and some pretty interesting face expressions. So I don't want to get started on that. But that aside, I have to say that his Spider-Woman and Silk look fantastic. The way he draws Silk's webbing also looks super good. And I do have to mention that his action is pretty well done. So in the first issue, we have Spider-Woman, who has been commended to protect Silk, who seems to be a person of interest of the Inheritors. They really want to capture her. They don't want to eat her for some reason. They call her the bride, and they seem to need her for some type of mystical ritual that they need to complete. So while on the run, Spider-Woman is having a real hard time keeping an eye on Silk in the first place. She seems that she's always getting herself in trouble and calling attention to herself. And this obviously calls the attention of the Inheritors who want to capture her. And this actually leads to Spider-Man Noir almost being killed by the Inheritors because he was also on that same mission. This leads to Spider-Woman actually calling out to the 616 Spider-Man and tell him, I'm not dealing with her anymore. So what Peter Parker decides to do is that he's going to send Spider-Woman on another mission and puts Spider-Gwen and Araña to take care of Silk, who Silk immediately is able to ditch and get into trouble again. So I don't know too much about Silk as a character because when she made her first appearance, I had stopped reading Spider-Man during that time. But she seems to be really interesting, and that she was locked away in a bunker for some reason and possibly bitten by the same radioactive spider that bit Spider-Man. Again, I'm not really sure. So the thing is that she's sort of like hell-bent on experiencing life and adventure, so that's why she gets into so much trouble in these issues. So in issue number 2, we have Spider-Woman going to the home dimension of the Inheritors. She's going to go deep undercover, and for some reason she doesn't take off her costume. I guess that would call a lot of attention to herself, but she does look cool. So what happens is, once she gets into the stronghold of the Inheritors, she actually discovers that the Jessica Drew of this world is the lover to Morlun. So at least for me, I feel like we have a missed opportunity here because this twist is super cool. Because Morlun has this relationship openly, like everyone knows that his lover is Jessica Drew. And I think it would have been a lot cooler if Morlun had this in secret because he's sort of dating his food. And this would add some interesting tension with his family and his secret. While this is going down, we have Silk jumping around the multiverse trying to escape the Inheritors till she finds a reality that they can't enter because it's so radioactive that it hurts them. It seems that this reality has gone through nuclear war, and this reminded me that this was the weakness to Morlun in general. He just can't stand radioactivity, so I wonder why they didn't use it from the beginning of this crossover. Peter Parker should have called Radioactive Man to beat the snot out of the Inheritors. I know this would have been a much shorter story, but it makes more sense. So that aside, what we discover with Spider-Woman is that the Inheritors are actually keeping in this sacred chamber a character called the Great Weaver. He has this grand spiderweb that goes across the multiverse and through time and space in general. So he can sort of see different realities and futures and stuff like that. So the Inheritors actually use this to their favor. So obviously this character is a prisoner of the Inheritors, but he has orchestrated this whole situation that leads to Spider-Woman being in that place because he's been subtly touching and moving the web of destiny to his favor without calling attention to his captors. So he gives Spider-Woman 2 scrolls, which have key information in taking down the Inheritors. So what happens with Spider-Woman is that she uses her teleportation device to teleport these scrolls back to Spider-Man, but she ends up trapped on the homeworld of the Inheritors because Morlun almost realizes that she's not the real Jessica Drew from his dimension. So if he would have found those scrolls on her, she would have been in deep trouble. So in Amazing Spider-Man issue 12, we still have our Spider people on the run. The Inheritors have been picking them off one by one. In the previous issue, they actually even consumed Cosmic Spider-Man. Also in this issue, Peter Parker discovers that the Inheritors are able to follow them because they've been eavesdropping on all their communications. Genix, who is like the most intelligent of the Inheritors, has found a backdoor to their communication technology through the Web of Destiny. So thanks to the scrolls that the Great Weaver gave to Spider-Woman and she teleported to Spider-Man, they know of this reality that's all radioactive, that the Inheritors can't go there, the same one where Silk accidentally jumped to. So now they don't have to worry about the Inheritors because, again, the Inheritors can't deal with radiation, but they have to find refuge ASAP because they're going to die of radiation poisoning pretty quick too. So they find all these web arrows all across the city that were made by Silk that lead them to this bunker. And we get this really awesome moment because we discover who's the person that's living in this bunker, and it's Uncle Ben, who is the Spider-Man of this reality.